Eastern Time. It's LinkedIn Live, Hour of Empower. And the word of the day is acknowledge, acknowledgement. You can take it either way, it's, your choice. But with that said, chat's wide open. We depend on chat to make us more relevant, have a little bit more fun, and to be more involved and be interactive. So, with that said, I'm going to turn it over to our friend Leslie Flowers, who everybody knows, with her Think and Grow Rich show on Fridays, Mind Over Matter on Mondays. So Leslie's everywhere. Here is Leslie here. And Leslie, say hello to the audience and what's
Hello,
going on with
audience.
acknowledge. Okay,
Hi.
take it away.
You can tell we've practiced this so many times. Hello, everybody. Happy Saturday. Right? Good morning to you. Good morning to you. We're all in our places with sunshiny faces. This is the way to start our new day. You'd have to be a boomer to remember that song, right, Donald?
For sure. And we've got a person who just heard your song and couldn't wait to dive in. Ivan's here. Hey, dear
Yeah.
friends, hope you're both doing exponential. That's a great thing. Maybe that'll be a word one day. Leslie,
Yeah.
so carry on with your, now that you've started with a song and everybody's delighted, what do you have to say?
It's you and me and Ivan.
Well,
It's okay. So
that's
so
better than those 2 minutes ago.
I got to thinking about acknowledgement and why it's important and why it feels good and how I had to make it a practice that it didn't come naturally,
Hmm.
right, to acknowledge people. And so I've noticed that when someone acknowledges me, like over and above a check or an applause, which I totally appreciate because you stopped, right? But when someone takes the time to really say something that lets me know they know what I'm doing and they
Mhm.
know my heart, there's nothing that feels as good as that. And so, one of the things that I've done is begun to make it a practice of acknowledging people for who they are for me, right? It's not so much that, let's just say it this way. So, Donald, right? Who you are for me is the leader, the person who creates a new trail and who, like the Pied Piper of Hamelin, gets out his flute and everybody follows, but you're the one that is the trailblazer. So now, how does that make you feel? This is who you are for me. So, what was going through your mind as I was acknowledging you?
Oh, I believe it was confirming and validating to what I already feel the role is. And it's an easy role because when you're at a high level of business for 4 decades almost,
Mm-hmm.
that's what you've been playing every day. You would be out of fit if you became a follower, right? Because there's too many things to lead
Mm.
and there's too many things you're passionate about or interested in that you want to lead
Well, I want to
because
go back to my acknowledgement of you because you got off course.
well a little
So,
bit.
so I want to know how. So, what I really want to look at with you
Okay.
is how does it actually feel and why does it feel so good? Now, yes, you've been doing this for 40 years, but even you said what you said was it confirms, right, who I actually am, which tells.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Well, here I'll address that. There's nuances to what we're talking about.
Okay, sure.
And with that, someone who leads is someone who's just faster to the front than somebody else, right? Someone who wants to see something quicker and jumps out. And hopefully, like a scout says, hey, I just found the land of milk and honey, come on over, right? And people are looking for those pathfinders, those breakthrough type people.
They're looking for you. So say they're looking for people like me. There aren't many like you. So, I want you to know that there are very few people that are doing what you're doing.
There's
So
nobody doing what I'm
I
doing.
want you to get that about
Who
yourself.
else could do this for 365 days straight and have a smile on their face and can't wait to get to the next one? But here's what people, and I think that's a quality point you make, Leslie, is there's no people like us because of where we've been that no one else will see unless we tell them what we saw.
That's
right. The TV shows, the music, the theater, the sports teams back then, whatever it was an era. And it was a valuable era because everything got built on top of it, right? The next decade followed the next decade. And where I think acknowledgement has to come in is where value is and where people can see mentorship. I mean, you can be a leader by what you've done, right? Because you've got skills and vision and perspective that no one else heard. You've got jokes, stories, and quotes that nobody's heard. So I think by acknowledging what does someone have in their treasure chest that so far isn't being shown above, and I think a leader brings that out. They say leadership is getting people to do things they wouldn't have or couldn't have done without you. Right.
Well, and you're a model. So here's the other thing. See, I want to get back into why it makes us feel so good. Like I've been acknowledged. I know that I'm rare. I know who I am for people. It's when someone else is able to say, Leslie, here's who you are for me. And I respond the same way you just did. And that means that you know who I am, right? It's authentic. But why does it feel so good?
Well, because to the earlier point, it does confirm what you believe, but it's through someone's hopefully objective, no skin in the game eyes, right? And if it happens enough, that stabilizes you because then the next person who says something that's adverse to that, you've already got 3 in the poll that said yes. Now you'll factor that one in. But the bigger question is 2 things. Is you can always ask, why did you say that, good or bad?
Just right? Say thank you.
No, but I'm saying to the person who had a criticism, that had an issue. You could say, why did you, what made you feel that way, or what was your thought? Right. Or you can just move on. And most people don't move on because all of a sudden they get into a discussion. They get into trying to convince someone or convince themselves and justify what doesn't have to be justified to people who don't have any investment in you. And I think that's what leaders do, is they don't look at the side of the road when they're driving down the road, right? They got a mission, they got a goal. And leaders, Ted Turner had a plaque on his desk and it said, lead, follow, or get the hell out of the way. And that's how he did business. Because
now, if you get any lower, you're going to be off the screen.
Well, you always say that.
I know.
I do get the attention. So let me get to these wonderful people. They always spice up the show.
Well, while you're doing that, I was going to bring up Paul. He's here. Oh. So about acknowledgement and what Paul does as you going through these.
Okay, let me do it. Elizabeth is here.
Okay,
Elizabeth
go ahead.
Is making a big showing these days, coming on shows, making comments, making connections. I think, in the beginning, you got to do more just to get the ball rolling. You got to build momentum. I think Elizabeth is handling that well. Refresh, yes. Thank you, Leslie. Paul, I was on his show, I believe it was Wednesday night. Then I saw he had an audio event Thursday night. Then I saw he had another live show last night. So, I think Paul's picking up on consistency, exposure. There's so few shows like this, and Leslie's and Paul's, and I can go on, Kelly's and Gretchen's, and can't forget Harvey Tuck. But it's also having value, right? Coming away better than you started, and that's why people come back. So, anyways, Paul says, hello to my favorite people. Always a pleasure. Paul always greets everybody with respect and being very polite. Grateful to be here to learn and support from you both. Maria's here. Maria's been here about every day. Thank you, Maria. Always bringing a lot of keystrokes to the comments. Oh, I was just talking about Christine. I'll get to her next. Dennis, you are the real deal and you're more and not just Leslie. Leslie, see, he figures this out. We can go to sleep at night knowing Dennis is on the case, and he's going to come up with something. Yeah. Maria says, hey, Elizabeth. Christine, I haven't seen you. I thought, what happened to Christine? Hi, listening in as I'm waiting to have my cards back. That's a great thing about today's world and technology. Hope all's doing well. I know you had your hands full for quite a bit, so glad to see you again, Christine. Maria is, okay, why is everything double? Not on.
It's a telephone thing. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. Switch off and on or something. Momentum takes more than just a moment. For sure. Fabian, I haven't seen Fabian in like months. And you know what it shows? Give it long enough, everybody remembers, everybody comes back. Fabian says, hi, listening from London. Grow and learn on the weekend. Get ahead and stay ahead. Thanks both. Thank you, Fabian. We'll have to touch base and, maybe get you on the show. So who do we have now? Maria, hi, beautiful. Great. Getting back to Leslie.
Yes. Let me acknowledgement. Here's what I want. Well, go ahead, Donald.
No, I'm just saying is we started out the question from Leslie about acknowledgement and Leslie acknowledged me. Leslie then gave Paul a nice acknowledgement.
Well, I haven't finished talking about that yet.
That's why I want to get you right back. So it's like what happened on the earlier episode. Now people.
Okay. So here's the thing that Paul does. And I do this too. I don't know how he learned it. Hello, Paul. We're talking about you. Actually, I do it better than he does, but he does it more efficiently. So his audio rooms, he welcomes everybody. Now, and when I do it, well, I do the same thing, and I will throw in something about the person. Right now, Paul doesn't always do that. I do my best if I recognize you. And I have done in facilitated groups intentionally and done this in the audio room where I will mention each person and who they are for me. And it's a cleansing, heartfelt thing because I'll say, Paul, who you are for me is a third my age with all my wisdom. Then he knows that I got him, right? And I could say, Dennis, right? So no matter what audio room I'm in, I'm going to bring in something about what they do to acknowledge them. And then the response is a heart. So there's this magic in taking that extra step. We want to be acknowledged. In fact, I don't think we're acknowledged enough. And that's what I like what Paul does. It's and you do it too in your own way with the comments. Absolutely. But it's very important to the person being acknowledged because they may not have been acknowledged for anything for a week. Someone may not have said anything about you on LinkedIn in any audio or video or any post. And it feels lonely. Kimberly Lechnick used to come to this, right? Kimberly Lechnick?
I don't remember.
No? Okay. Well, she also does that kind of a thing. And it creates this safe space. So in this world where we can gather people from all over the world on interesting subjects that we're curious about learning, we really, in audio rooms, we have people who can't comment. They can only do the emoticons, right? And they can come up and speak, and it's not recorded. So it's this private kind of confidential place. Now here, the only way to communicate is through the comments. So I think that as I've made that a practice and I've watched the response that Paul gets, there's something magical about taking a moment to acknowledge someone. And they don't have to be, they don't have to be somebody who has 100,000 followers. They could have 25 and just be starting out, but they have this wonderful way of expressing themselves. So I'd love to hear from the audience and from you too, Don, about this practice of feeding others by letting them know you see them for who they are.
Okay, so much to cover.
Oh, God.
Let me start.
Okay.
Okay. I think what's primary to acknowledgement is to yourself first, right? So when I do a show, instantly within whatever 30 seconds, I got a feel for what kind of show it was, right? The feel I got from it, the feel I gave to it, the energy, the participants, the new stuff. Great. That is always what I measure against or build on, right? If someone adds something, well, it confirms what I thought. Maybe they saw something I didn't. Well, we add on to that. That keeps building the platform.
Mhm.
So once you're confident that, and once you've done something enough, you're smart enough and you know enough to know it was great, right? If you made an egg salad, right? And it was perfect, you knew it. No matter what someone told you, it's like you didn't taste what I tasted, right? I mean, I don't know how you taste.
Everybody tastes different.
That's right. And here's the point. You need to keep changing to continue to get different acknowledgments, right? Being told you do one thing right all the time and you're good at it. And where I see this show and what you're talking about other people's shows is the audience is key, but the content is premium, right? So it's the two people producing great information, sharing inspiring, thought-provoking, action-oriented or moving information. Because here's what happens. The audience is only here during the show. The show continues after the audience, right? And what's in the can that you just figured out is going to be there forever. I mean, supposedly. But with that said, what I'm seeing the show as is having more of a conversation with the person on the show as you would with the person if you weren't on the show, and inviting the audience to participate in what they're feeling, what they're thinking, and then bringing them into the show. So like a conductor, you got to make the blend. I agree, everybody's important, everybody's name's important, everybody's comments are important, and I know how I feel when I comment, I never see the comment, I never get acknowledged. I just say no one cares. So it really points to acknowledging the benefit that caring for someone has, because I think to Leslie's point, most people go out of their way not to compliment you either because it's already been done by somebody, or they don't want to engage. And that's the key. People need to have to engage after they've done something enough to know enough. And what I'm driving for now is there's too many shows where nothing changes the next day. It's the same kind of conversation, the same kind of hi versus what are you doing? What can we do? I mean, and I think you go on LinkedIn or other platforms. I know how hard Leslie works, how much time she puts into it, how much she supports to others that you can't really quantify like you can do in a show. And why becomes the question that everybody has to ask before they acknowledge something, right? And what is everybody doing now who had all these wonderful intentions, has all this new knowledge, all this new support, and had some desire or passion to do something or do something better? When does that day start, right? And I'm here to promote that. And really the thing that has to happen to match up is best practices, is the knowledge to do something, which leads me to my new mastermind that I haven't launched yet because I'm still getting input. And that's just like the show. I'm always looking for comments because I want to get it right for me and I want to get it right for people in the future. And I think the only thing stopping people is their fear of not knowing something, not being able to do something. I know so many people on these live shows who go on for the first time think it's going to be this real challenging, difficult situation, and they find out to be just the opposite. And they ask themselves, why did I wait so long? So anyways, I want to acknowledge Leslie for doing all the good she does, Paul, Dennis. And here's one thing about leadership. It means nothing if it's not longer term consistent.
That's right.
Right? Someone who just comes in, raises the flag and marches everybody and then never shows up again, just got everybody going in a direction that there was never one. So that with that said, Leslie, I know it's a lot to deal with. What do you
It's
have?
a lot for me not to talk this. My way, you're making all these points and these chats are going. So going way back to where you first began about what is it about people? Why don't they do that? And Paul brought up one of my golden nuggets, which is thanks, Paul. He's listening. So when you look for the good in other people, you have to have it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So the goodness within you, consider it's a muscle, and it grows like any other muscle. So if you intentionally acknowledge people, it might feel a little uncomfortable the first time, like, oh, what am I doing? But you have to have those things within you in order to see them in them. And the more you do this, the more your own expands. So there's an intentionality. Now, the next point, right? Thank you, Paul. The next thing is when you were talking about what we're doing, we're setting the context. And the context for the show is decisive. So, you have a particular context, which means you're setting the framework, right? And so we get to do that up here. We get to say what we're going to talk about. We get to express ourselves. But as far as acknowledgement goes, it's not an easy thing to do because you actually have to be a little vulnerable to speak about someone else in this matter. So, for example, let me just take Elizabeth. Elizabeth Falloon is brilliant and is a heart-centered servant. And she is deciding the best way for her to help others. And I really like the way she's doing it because she is connecting and testing in a lot of different learning environments, giving her this wide understanding of what personal development and awareness is. So then Elizabeth, and I know her, so Elizabeth, hopefully her chest is rising and her vibration rose because I got her. And I also like what she's doing. So she's hearing that I'm supporting her. So there's a lot that goes with setting the context. And I'm going to be doing this more and more. It only takes 30 seconds to do it. And it really acknowledges people on audio rooms. Now, I don't know how to do it on a video room.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Elizabeth, oh, okay, I got it. I thought it was Maria.
Here's a mix because one can do a little of both. I mean, I can invite 8 more people right now from the audience to be on the stage, right?
Oh, yeah.
And you'd see 10 people, and 10 people could be doing what we're doing. When coming back to the word acknowledge, though, what brings me back in my first and only job when I worked in a grocery store, and I depended on tips. Back then, people would tip you, right? And because I gave my check to my mother every week for 2.5 years, never took a paycheck. And I made as much money or more on my tips. And what it allowed me to do is find things about people that someone else wasn't telling them, right? And most of the people were women shoppers, and it was kind of a high-end neighborhood store. Leslie, I'm talking. Anyways.
I apologize.
No, you're forgiven in advance. So anyways, with that said, I always found something that they wanted to talk about or hear, because most of the time you'd walk into their car or you'd take your buggy and you'd follow them to the car, you load up their trunk, and they give you a tip, right? And some people give you a dime. Back then it was still a dime. I was only making $1.15 an hour, so put that in context. But some people give you $1, right? And it was because of the way you made them feel, not because of the way you took their groceries to the car. You know,
Actually,
it's always like, I was a 15, 16-year-old kid. Most of these people were pretty mature and pretty fashionable, I'd have to say. You'd see some wonderful cars and clothes and everything else. And that's what made me understand that if you found something special in somebody that was special, not just something routine, and you could see the smile on their face.
but can't routine be special? So, for example, you're bagging groceries, right? And you know the person because you bag for them every week, right? And they always give you a tip. And they say, I really like it, Donald, how you put the heavier things on the bottom. And I never have a hard time unloading my groceries. That means so much to me. So that is really part of your job. It's, how you're supposed to bag. So that actually is routine. The acknowledgement is designed to lift that person up, really. And it's true for you. Now, it may not be true for anybody else, any of the other shoppers. Oh, that Donald, he doesn't know how to bag. But this particular person actually saw who you were. And that's where I'm going. I think that we can be much more intentional. And I'm going to do that myself and take the action purposely, like put a sticky note before one of my shows so that I make sure to do that because people love it.
Oh, and then you see, that's the key. If you go the other direction, if you go to road less traveled, I once had a lady, elderly lady, now at 70s, 80, and she would come in every day, and she would just get 3 items, 4 items every day, and and it was a small bag, right? And I would still walk her to the car every day because people wanted to be escorted anyways. And
we did it back then. Like they changed. I mean, they wiped our windshield down. They pumped our gas. Yeah, it was service oriented.
She became friends with the people that saw you, and pretty soon she would ask me how school's going, how this, and gave me $1 every day. And found out when it was my birthday and gave me $5, which is 4 hours of pay, right? And cash. So, I learned if you make people feel better, and especially better than most people in their life make them feel, right? You become a premium in their life.
Donald, you reminded me of my favorite quote in all the world.
Thank you for telling me that.
What you just said.
Tell me.
By Thoreau, if one advances confidently in the direction of their dreams and endeavors to live the life they've imagined, they will meet with success in hours uncommon. So it's not what he means is if one advances confidently, you don't have to run, take small steps and endeavors to live the life they've imagined, just try, then the successes are going to be unexpected. So it won't be from your $1 an hour paycheck. It's from the $5 that you got unexpectedly because of the relationship you built. And that's why I love that story that you told, because it's exactly what Henry David Thoreau was talking about.
Well, and you're so right, because acknowledgement can be the key to doors, because you don't have to learn it over and over. You just got to apply it over and over.
You do have to practice it. So if you're one of those people and you're hearing this on the replay or even in the audience, and you've been reluctant to do this, you think it's a good idea, you see the value, you know what it feels like if someone finds something special about you, you could intentionally choose to include that when you engage where a person could hear it right? Or even if you did it by text, you can, but it means so much more in those audio rooms to talk to the person. Everybody else hears what you're saying, right? And of course, what you're saying is brilliant because you're only looking for the brilliance in other people. So it matches your own brilliance, it reflects, right? You can do that, you can exaggerate. That's being heart centered,
Mhm.
purposely lifting someone's spirit. So what if you use an extra adjective? So what if it isn't true for everybody else? I could care less. What I care about is that context.
Well, and sure, and the belief that everything is going to come together when it needs to in its own time, and enjoy where you're at, learn from it. But what it
Absolutely.
also teaches is, they say, necessity is the mother of invention. If I didn't need those tips for myself, I wouldn't have figured out ways to continue to make that an increasing benefit to everybody involved, right? If I kept my own paycheck and I didn't live on my tips, or didn't have to live much
What
on
if you didn't get tips? So would you? So let's say scenario.
I did that with everybody. I got so friendly with the delicatessen ladies. I remember them, and they were old, real old, right?
Oh
One
yeah,
was Bessie, and one was,
they're like us now.
yeah. And I was always going, because I was getting paid by the hour, right? So
Right, right.
my time was wherever I put it. So I would always go around the store and say, "Is there something I can help you with?" or whatever. One time they made me do pickles, and I had to wear gloves, and it stunk for a week. But, anyways, they would always take care of me, because they would always say, "Well, let us make you a sandwich," right? What kind of
And
cold.
that's the unexpected. So
Everyone
it's
was taking care of me. I mean, eventually I ran the Kentucky Derby pole. I was working the whole thing, everywhere I went, I was figuring out, how can I help somebody? And eventually, if I helped them more and more than anybody else and took an interest, right, they would find ways to help me.
of
And
course.
everybody's helping each other, but someone had to stir the pot, get the ball rolling, and then really generate some excitement and energy, because people are looking for that charge, right? And that's why,
Well, we need it. We want it, but I wonder if we don't need this. I wonder if the acknowledgement really isn't like a virtual hug. I've been reading lately that we need like 8 hugs a day. And, what happened to people's mindset and the way they felt during COVID when they couldn't get those 8 hugs, or they're alone, right? Or they're unwell. So I'm wondering if acknowledgement is going to balance our inner conversation about we're not good enough, why do things happen to me, I don't see people anymore. The opposite is to purposely look for the good in other people because it grows your own good. You can't see it if you don't have it. You won't be able to find it, right? And there are people, and maybe it's sociopaths, psychopaths, I don't know. But if you cannot find something good to say about somebody, you have no good in you. You must be able to do
you're
this.
with the wrong somebody. But to your point, what I see and what I've done is I would err on the side of over acknowledgement than under acknowledgement, right?
Mm.
And it's purely in the moment, because that's when it comes out sincere. If you're standing next to somebody and you say, "Wow, that's a great briefcase you're walking around with," or, "Hey, those shoes are just," but if you do it in a conversational, friendly way, it's not like, who are you? What are you? And all of a sudden, what are you talking to me? It's going to be thank you. And that's, I think Leslie made a great point, and a lot of people don't deal with it properly. When someone acknowledges you sincerely and with good intention, you should go out of your way to acknowledge them. Thank you so much for that. That's so kind. And all of a sudden, that's an acknowledgement back. It's a thank you. And it's not like, "Oh, you love my hat, I love your hat." It's like, no, that belt is, come to think of it, here's what comes to mind, and even it's a little, I wouldn't say not so tight, it's still an acknowledgement,
The
right?
belt? Oh,
Well,
no.
anything you share, because you know what? It's attention.
And that's I'm thinking that's what we're all missing. Now, for example, right, here's an acknowledgement when my third granddaughter, who has her driver's permit, gets in my car. I almost have to heave because she smells like the Yankee Candle store or Bath and Body Works. If you have a teenager, they all seem to do this. They spray themselves, but you can't tell how strong it is when you apply your own perfume. So I've taught them to, in front of you up in the air, give it a squish and walk underneath because the smell is nauseating. It's like a candle store
what do you
in
do
my car.
when that happens?
Huh?
What do you do? Acknowledge how bad it
I
is?
do. I said, what the heck? Julia, what's going? She says, is it too much again, Nana? I said, yes, let me open the window and throw up. I was kidding on that. But that's when I told her how to. She said, it doesn't smell strong to me. I said, I know. And that's how it is about perfume. So spray it up in the air, walk under it quickly. You get this nice little blanket of molecules and you don't smell like Bath and Body Works.
Mhm.
Right. Oh my God. And so that is the acknowledgement was this does not smell good to me. Here's another way to do it so you can still enjoy your perfume and not have Nana throw up.
Well, and two, you're doing it to be helpful, not to
Of
be
course.
critical.
I'm not
So
being critical. I'm sick.
when you're being honest, and that's important when you acknowledge honesty, right? Someone's got their shoelaces untied. It's not bad to say you should do your shoelace. Well, let's go to comments.
Yeah.
Paul, I always think about something Dr. Leslie Flowers told me: when you see greatness in yourself, you can see greatness in others. We never know how impactful the smallest acknowledgement can be on someone's life. And I've been to 2 or 3 of Paul's shows. I try to make Leslie shows because that's an acknowledgement,
It is.
right?
We see you. We see you.
And people see that, and then they come back and they acknowledge you. So I think there's a reciprocal nature that you can be the proactive initiator of acknowledgement. And if you go to someone's show 3, 4 times, you make comments and you don't get acknowledged, don't go there anymore. You're not being welcome, and you're not being acknowledged, and you're not being brought into the fold. Elizabeth comes back with my network. Okay, Paul, I go through these fast. I learned it from, great. And he does it with sincere appreciation because his grandfather meant so much to him, he said, and he lost him.
Paul is a machine.
Yeah, and I tell you one thing, working it is where it's at, right? Getting
He's a
results.
machine, I'm telling you.
Well, you're pretty prodigious too. So don't, I would, okay, now we've got a new person with Raymond. Yes, it does magic to others when they are acknowledged. It is. You can see a smile show up immediately. And thanks for uncovering so much today. So nice to have you, Dennis. Was on the show. A real delight. This gave me an idea. I'm curious what would happen if we create an audio event that was audience driven. Listen, you got the power. You can do anything you want one time. Who's going to care? Great to see you, Amber, from Paul. Dennis, agree. We all need to listen more than we talk the walk. That's why we all have 2 ears and 1 mouth. So true. Paul comes back. It all comes down to awareness plus action. And awareness is the form of action. You got to do to figure.
Well, the action is learning. So to Paul's statement, the action is intentional learning, continuing to study.
Oh, my tips are gravy. Sounds great, Paul. It's nice to be acknowledged. Thanks for sharing a tip. It's still good food for thought. Oh, look who's here. Charles is here from Hong Kong. Love Charles. And it's usually because it's the weekend and he can stay up a little later because this show starts.
Oh, it's midnight there.
Well, it starts. Yeah. And Charles found that. Charles, great to see you, my friend. I saw Christine Feedy. People don't leave. They just take off and come back for a while. You know what I mean?
Well, and that's the thing about audio rooms that I want to get straight with my audience. And those of you who've done audio rooms, people stop in. It's different than teaching, and it's even different than a live session, because in a live session, you can stop in and leave a comment. No one really knows when you leave. I've gotten many, many messages, private messages. Leslie, I hate to leave this audio room, but I'm only here for a certain time. So I'm going to tell people, stop in and stay as long as you like.
Mhm.
Period. It's okay to leave, right? In this, it's like listening to the radio. Unless you're going to get up on stage and speak, you can turn the radio off whenever you want.
Well, and I think that's so important. And also, one has to continue to choose their audience. And the audience has to continue to choose their show, right?
We actually attract, but yes, you're right.
Well,
Based on the attraction.
every day you make a decision with your time.
That's right. That's right.
And most of your decisions are based on the last investment of that time in whatever activity, right? If you went to a great restaurant, you love the food, it's going to get on your calendar sooner, right? If you met somebody that you're really excited about, you're going to find ways to do something with them. I
Yes.
think that everybody's point, by having an activity, put you in a position to be a chooser. So in other words, if you have a show, if you have a book, if you have something, right, then you're more than just what you have to say. It's what I had to say transformed into what I did here or what I'm going to do. Because the question should be, who wants to do something with me, or who's doing something that wants me to help them? And that fills up the time while you're trying to make it happen or wait for someone to acknowledge you. I mean, I hear it all the time. I send 100 resumes. I never hear back about the job, right? And it's like, well,
Find another solution.
yeah, that's what I'm saying is you did get 100 no's out of 100.
Yeah, no decision is a decision. You have to look at it that way, because while you may be disappointed that you sent out 100 resumes and you hadn't heard back, if you stay focused on that, your next opportunity, unexpected, will walk right by you and you'll never notice it. So if it doesn't work, start looking up and watch for people and opportunities that align with you. But you can't do both. You can't be disappointed. Oh, I should have had, right? What's wrong with these people? I mean, I'm the right candidate, right? For whatever reason, that's what your level of perception is. But don't do the same thing again. And don't stay in being down. Start looking for a better solution to the one that you've been working with. There are others.
Mm-hmm. Well, that applies to redirecting into other areas,
Yep.
redirecting into other people. And, maybe because I've always had that sense of urgency, and I don't like waiting on people. I don't like having to sit and take a number. I'm almost like, hey, just move out of the way. I'll take care of this. Or who do you report to? Because that used to always happen. People would say no. And I said, do you sign the checks there? And they said, no. I said, well, I'm talking to the wrong person, right? Who signs the checks? Who's the big dog? Because that's who I want. What am I working with you? And not only that, when I talk to him, I'm going to tell him about you.
But you will do it on the Grandpa Don diplomatic way.
Well, it depends. I meet fire with fire, and I know in most cases who I'm dealing with, what I'm dealing with, and what my, let's say, rights are, and who's who, right? So if you're a customer, you have a special status over a service representative. I mean, it should be that way. They're here to help you, and you're buying something, providing their income. Without getting too deep into it, when there's a lot of people given direction who don't know what they're doing.
Absolutely.
They're the person you got to convince, and you say this person is lost, but they're using their position of authority that someone granted them to refuse something. And again, it depends on how important it is. Is it worth the fight? After a while, it's like, hey, this is going to be 30 more minutes. We're talking $5. I'm not spending 30 minutes. And then there's no sure thing because the next person could be just as aggravating. But the thing is if you believe in something, you'll show it in the way you address it. But most people, to Leslie's point, aren't diplomatic, aren't respectful. You're not going to get somebody to do something if they don't feel kindly towards you, or they want to do something as an exception, or blah, blah, blah. So I think it's how you acknowledge based on how you've been acknowledged.
Exactly. And how you want to be acknowledged, because the way you acknowledge someone else, remember, when you can see it in them, they can see it in you. And everybody is ready at their own time to do this. This conversation really is looking at what makes us feel good. What else can we do to set a positive context? And I got to thinking about, I get acknowledgement. And as you said, it confirms what I believe I am. But, at the same time, I've been in rooms before where people are very focused on the people that don't like them. So, and the confusion, well, how come those people don't like me? Because there's a part of you that doesn't believe you're deserving to be liked. And that causes you to look only at the people who don't like you. Look at all those people, they don't like me. But what about the people who do like you? Why don't we forget about those and go after the people that do like you? Because by law, there are as many people that do like you as don't. But our own self-image is cybernetic. It takes something to change what you deserve. So until you understand and believe and have perfect faith that you are capable of doing things you've never done before, you do it damn good and you deserve it, then you're going to stop. Until you do that, you'll still be looking for people and be hurt by peoples who are at a lower level of awareness anyway, and that's their own issues. There's something in them that they don't like, that they're looking for in you. So when people don't like you, it really isn't you, it's themselves. Because what we don't like about ourselves, we're going to find out we're going to see in others.
That's true, and I believe that
it is.
If you already have a base of support, of supporters, then you're just incrementally adding or subtracting to it, right? So if you have 6 people that you can depend on, love you, will do pretty much anything for you under the right circumstances, you're not dependent on that one person you don't have anybody in your life for. Right? Or that one acknowledgement that if you didn't get it is going to make you feel bad, because, you can always go back to your fans, right? And, like to me, my family's my fans. They don't know what's going on half of the time with what I'm doing. They only know when they see me and when they're with me, what we're going to be doing. And, it's not only a routine, it's locked in. I mean, when my first granddaughter was born, I just said to myself, well, what am I going to be to this girl? And what came out is fun. So anytime she sees me, and then her brother came along and he sees me, and it's been like that every time I've been with them, because I only had one thing in mind.
And you set the context, and you had an intention, and that was your goal, and it was all based on love.
Yeah, well, it was based on what I know is something I want to duplicate through them. That if whatever they do in life, they enjoy it, they have fun, or they find ways to have fun, right? Then that's going to project on their acknowledgement of others. And to your point, the attraction of other fun, positive, acknowledging people, because I'm spoiling them with that fun. Right.
And that fun is the highest vibration. Can we look at what Paul is saying? Because I want to address his comment.
Let me get to Raymond. Lifting others are a great gesture and needs more empathy and vulnerability. Paul comes in with, I know for me, whether I'm the host or I'm speaking, I acknowledge people because most people don't acknowledge me. Sometimes I wait up on stage and sit back and listen. It's all about appreciation and gratitude. And, you know, Leslie, Paul, myself, we have so much time every week on air, right? That there's no need to grab more time or take the spotlight. If there's anybody who can shine, who can show up. And, you know, the other thing is mixing it up, right? You should have a blend where it's not the same old, but it's not a surprise every time either. Elizabeth, we all have brilliance within. It takes a person who feels brilliant to bring it out in others.
Yes.
So true. Ramet is really prodigious today. Absolutely, Paul. People listen to you not only for content, yes, it's important, but they listen to you because you are humble and know the art of appreciation and gratitude. And, you know, people will forget what they learned from you, but they won't forget what they felt from you, you know, and that continues on. And I think that's more important because words come and go, but feelings, to Leslie's point, not everybody is that kind and thoughtful and respectful. And when you find those people who are genuinely over time that way, not superficially to get you in and then forget about you. It wasn't until I removed myself from certain spaces that people realized I was gone. I wish people realized that presence is the ultimate gift. You know what I say to this gifting thing is anybody who gives me back something I offered to them is re-gifting it to the person who should have got it in the first place, right? So their rejection is not of me or what I have. It's just that they weren't perceptive enough, insightful enough. And, you know, there's another saying, don't ever be the smartest person in the room, right? So you want to be with people you can learn from, grow with, and they can acknowledge you in a way that you can get better for it. Yes, we need 8 hugs a day for maintenance. You know, you can never hug enough, right? Because everybody needs connection. Everybody needs relationship. I find acknowledgement important because it also allows you to find solutions. If you can't acknowledge a problem exists, you won't ever be able to solve it for sure. And you got to acknowledge your own shortcomings. That's the only way you're going to build is like, I did this, 6 out of 10, the other 4 we got to think about. And eventually you get 7, you get 8, and you master it. But once you master it, you don't start with 4 again. You start complete, right? And you're proud of what it took to build it. And everything is a brick that you put in the wall to make it stronger. Linda's here. Linda's great. Good morning, all. Acknowledging a beautiful way to spend moments to bring my soul encouraging words from many. Thanks, Don, for all acknowledgement, for being a part and bringing so many beautiful people together. And, you know, it's Linda's and Dennis's and everybody here that we have to start as a person. We have to start as our inner essence, in a sense. And too many people get confused with numbers, with titles, with what I used to do. Well, that just puts you in a position where you are today. What are you doing today with it? And there's people that they let their past define their future, right? I mean, they think because of they always did it, they're always going to have to do it, or you know, and it's not there.
That's actually putting your past in the future. Is it possible that we can go to Paul's comment that starts with, it's interesting?
Emir's here. Never saw him. But yeah, we can go.
I am here, yes. Oh, you passed him. You passed Paul.
This, okay.
It says, it is interesting how so many people, that is the one of Paul's that I'd love for you to bring up.
It is, okay.
That's the first line of it. It's before Emir, I'm pretty sure.
Okay, before Emir.
Well, he says, it's interesting how many people always acknowledge the negative comment out of 100 positive ones. And he says that's why growth is painful. And what I wanted to bring up, because it is interesting and it really is insightful, my daughter was a competitive baton twirler in middle school and high school, and she competed with Drum Majorettes of America. She twirled 1 baton, 2 baton, 3 batons, 4 batons, 3 fire batons, and every Friday night, the band, right, she would be the twirler. If she ever dropped it, that's what people noticed. It didn't matter that she could spin 4 times with 2 batons, that she could use angel wings which are a new kind, they were a new kind of thing, that she can twirl with puff puffs, that she can do 3 spins. I mean, all of these incredible, but drop it once. That's what people remember. So what is that? Paul brings that up, and it is interesting. Do you think that people focus on the dropped baton or the one mistake when a speaker is speaking and maybe his pant leg is not pleated properly and you're laughing at because the 2 cuffs look different, right? What is it? Is it because we don't think we could do it either and that it brings us down to their level? If you find something imperfect about them, does it? I don't really know. There's something in there. Don't you think so?
Yeah, well, I think so. It goes back to the half full, half empty glass. Some people look for the imperfection of things. Some people look in the beauty.
Most people do. The people who look for the good, I would say, are 5 out of 100 because it's a practice and you have to do it.
Well, maybe it's a situation where it also shows confidence or lack of it, because people who see negative want to protect themselves, right? And they see what's wrong before
they're looking for themselves.
That's right.
They're looking,
people are confident and saying, what can I pick up from somebody? What can I see? What can I value? But let's get back, because we're going to run out of time, and I wouldn't have been.
Thank you for letting me do that.
People, for sure. People look more at our lack. I feel it's what they lack with themselves. And, that's a signal you're on the wrong road with the wrong addresses. Time to move out of there and into something more upscale. It's because of perfection and expectations, in my experience. Debbie's here. I don't know if you met Debbie and seen her on the show. She's just marvelous. I want to acknowledge the difference being connected to alcohol has made in my world. Thank you. Well, what comes around goes around. I pick up a piece of Leslie, a piece of Debbie, a piece of Dennis, every time we do the.
I'm going to give you the fat pieces.
Oh, well, you're always over serving, Leslie. So that's your trait. So let me see, finding ourselves in ourselves. There's something about themselves that they don't like. I'll keep.
Right, he's taking notes basically, and that's a wonderful. What he's done is what Emil is doing is really beneficial for the replay, because when people watch this later, right, not only do they get the captions and they get the presence of us and the conversation, but they also get your comments too and your insights, and that's something that you want to remember, right? So it was important to you, so you jotted it down. It has an impact on other people, even if you weren't aware of it until just now.
Yeah, and you also are seen by so many people in the future by making a comment, being on the screen, right? So it ripples. That's why when the game's on, you should get into it as fast and as deep as you can. And I think one of Paul's attributes is putting 6-7 sentences together 6-7 times during a show, and all that exposure and all of his knowledge is going to get transferred. It's no different than commenting on a post. You're the best comment of the day, the one that shows up. The person who created that post is going to remember you over 4 or 5 days. You're going to be top of mind.
And that's an acknowledgement too, isn't it? In a way, a comment that has some weight and value to it.
It's a return benefit, because if you do it 4 or 5 days out of guilt or gratitude, they're going to have to thank you to keep it going. Because when you're complimenting somebody in front of people, it's even more than complimenting them directly, because now you're making them look good in front of their audience.
Well, you're edifying them.
That's right.
And I do this with like my friend Elizabeth is a hypnotist and a nurse. And so when I dabble in hypnotism in the sense of communicating with the subconscious mind directly, I always confirm with her, do I have that right, Elizabeth? Right.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Well,
and that edifies her.
Well, an easy rule of thumb is what you enjoy and what gets you excited gets people like you excited and joyful, right? So if you say, wow, that was great. I mean, it could have been anything, a movie you saw, something. You're going to share it with somebody just like you who says, I think you should know about this place. Or I know you like Chinese food. There's a new restaurant just opened up. Or hey, I know you love comedies. I just watched this. You're giving referrals all day long to people who don't even know you're doing it. And it's sincere and it's because of an experience. So why not take it to the next level? And, plan a little. And what I mean by planning, organize people right now who are the people you spend the most time with on LinkedIn, what they're doing, and then put together some sort of acknowledgement strategy based on this. It's like,
I do that with the Mondays. So when every Monday, I've collected about 20 or 25 audio and video or live stream rooms that I find very valuable. And the thing is they're weekly and they're on LinkedIn because I'm all about staying organized. I don't want to jump around to different platforms. I don't want to invest my time jumping around. So for me, I actually started doing that a few months ago to keep myself organized. And I missed a big one Thursday night. I could kick myself, right? That was one that I thought I had said I would be at, right? And I must not have clicked attend because I missed it totally. But that's why I do that. It's acknowledging the hosts.
mm-hmm.
Now, what the hosts do, they acknowledge me and then they share it with their people, right? So the whole idea is all these shows, people become aware of these shows, even if you don't get an invitation. They know, and all they have to do is go to the person's profile and they can.
Well, another thing is people can use tagging, right? That's the key on LinkedIn is tagging, because once you tag, that person's notified that you tagged them. And in turn, that will probably be a reason they'll get back. And most of the comments will be, thank you for the thoughtful mention. Thank you for including me. But you would have never got that thank you if you didn't tag the person. I tagged probably 40 people. Actually, next week I got a big show with Bob Berg. I'll probably go up to 150 people because I know that when you have something to offer that's new, different, or exciting, you should do everything you can to bring that to people's attention. And there's too little promotion in what people do. If you're going to have a big show next Thursday or whatever, how many days in advance are you promoting it?
All my shows are big shows, Don.
No, and I'm saying, but how many days in advance?
I do it exactly the same way every week. I have a process. I have 2 events. Paul has one that we do together, and it's consistent. The admin and the promotion is the same every week, so people know they're going to get the invitation, right? And that makes me spend less time, right? So I know I'll do it a few days in advance. It seems to work for me.
Well, and the way to do it, I believe, to make it time efficient is template it. Right. So in other words, you can promote something the same way 3 days in advance. It doesn't have to be a new post or a new anything, because
we found the reposts on your page don't get as much traction.
No, they don't. And actually, there's people think you want people to share your stuff, but you don't. And here's why. Because when someone reposts your stuff, you don't get any comments, right? Where if someone comments and people acknowledge it. So you want to keep encouraging certain people to acknowledge them more if you want more acknowledgement, and also throttle back on the people that you're not too enthused about, right? So in other words, it's just a matter of, hey, this person brings value. Let's acknowledgement. This person is just chattering here with no relevance to what we're talking about or selling something or whatever. But the thing is if you just use the rule of acknowledging more than less, finding opportunities to acknowledge,
Looking for the greatness in others, the little things that make them so special.
Well, and it's like hunting, right? When you find that moment or that situation that makes it right, that you said, wow, that truly is a beautiful ring you have on, right? I mean, or you have a
Yeah,
great car.
that's a conversation starter, and I do love that.
Well, it
And
depends
but
on the
that's
social situation, right? If
that's
you're at
true.
Starbucks, it's a different conversation than if you're at a dinner party, if you know the person, you don't know the person, whatever it is. But that's what makes it fun is you get to size it up. And that's what qualifying is all about. You get to qualify who is this? What is this? Where am I? And what is my intention here? A lot of times you have no intention. You just saw something really nice and you said, "Boy, that's a great painting," right? And then you move on. It's not like we're going to be lifelong friends, but you drop something with somebody now who hopefully feels better for seeing you, maybe never seeing you again. But you know what? That person will talk to the next person and say, there's a
Right.
gentleman just stopped by. You won't believe it. I
Yeah.
just bought this hat. They thought it was marvelous, and they didn't even, wait around to hear what I had to say. Some people leave you a compliment and not expect anything, or not.
Well, that's the best way. So when you acknowledge someone, you expect nothing in return. And that is a heart-centered servant. If you're doing it to gain numbers, to tweak the
Yeah, that's all
algorithm,
backwards. Yeah, you don't want to do
yeah,
that. What you want to do is be sincere, honest with
that's
yourself, and you should delight in what your delight was just acknowledged, right? When you see something.
well, that was the whole point of being acknowledged when I started this, or we started, was how does it make us feel? How important is acknowledgement? And Ramat says when you acknowledge someone, you validate their presence, their efforts, or their feelings. The validation can make people feel valued and appreciated, boosting their self esteem and confidence. That's it right there in a nutshell.
Yeah,
That's
and Debbie
really
comes back with mirror, reflect, elevate, share your own spotlight, acknowledge the team behind your own development. Yeah, give credit, don't take credit. Be interested, not interesting. I mean, and I think when people see that you took that road, the higher road, and not your road, because no one cares about you until they know you care about them. I mean, and it's like you're a big shot, but I don't. It doesn't mean nothing to me because I'm not related in any way.
that's right.
Relate to me, and
It has to be relevant to you. That's the first thing, right? Is relevancy. And then understanding them, getting them who they really are. Then you can let them get you. It's kind of like in networking, right? The last thing you want to do is be the business card ninja,
mhm.
where you just, I mean, it's like I like connecting with people. And maybe this is wrong of me, right? Maybe I'm not doing this right, but a lot of my connections dump their sales pitch in the direct message. Like I'm not looking for all
No,
these
that's
things. Well, I'm not.
no, that's wrong because it's lazy. Anybody can take a list of all these names and pick out the 4 or 5 they want to have a bigger conversation with, or have
Mhm.
something directly relevant to your point with. And I think that's important. And, if you're not having fun, if you're not enjoying yourself, and the last thing about the video audio, I mean, there's people who like video, there's people like audio, they both have benefits. But personally, I like seeing people when I'm talking with them, right? And when
Mhm.
they're talking with me, and seeing
Mhm.
an icon or whatever, an emoji or something to me is like halfway.
That's all we have.
Yeah,
On the audios, that's the limit. It's kind of like when Twitter was 32 characters, right? People griped about that. Now it's several hundred, and I guess the whole thing is a mess now. I don't know. I haven't been on Twitter in years, and I'm happy for it.
well,
I
I'm
don't need
happy to
another.
have you on the show, Leslie. I'm so grateful for the audience who acknowledge us, acknowledge each other. And
Great.
know you're more valuable in most cases than you give credit for. And it can't be based on what people tell you, because you shouldn't give weight to people who have negative comments, because I even wondered, even on LinkedIn on normal posting, why would you ever put a negative comment when you could have moved to a post that maybe you aligned with and had a positive?
Because you're on a low level of conscious awareness. You haven't started your journey yet. Most people are like this. They're looking for the negative, right? They think that, everybody gets to decide for themselves when they will say, is this all there is? I can be, do, or have more. The problem is that we have no control over when they do it. So they may occur to us as not our people, low level of awareness, but that's temporary for them. By the time we get to our deathbed, we get it all, right? We totally get all the screw ups we did. The question is so even if you've never become aware, you've been hard headed, you have not learned, you got a foul personality, and you're laying on your deathbed, you will get it then. But what a waste of a life. So, my advice to everybody is after this wonderful conversation, thank you, Donald, for this. I really appreciate it. Is my intention for you is to be more aware of how you can inspire others by letting them know who they really are for you and for other people by way of acknowledgement.
Well, that's very kind and thoughtful. And I think the lessons learned young at the grocery store last a lot longer, mean a lot more, because back then a dime was a dime, a quarter was a quarter, and you earned it. And you came back as the guy who just made a buck, as the guy who made a friend, as the guy who, so most people say, what do you do? I pack bags. I said, no, I make people feel good about coming in here and leaving here, right? And that's the touch. I've been in restaurants that the food is okay, but the people own it. They're so friendly. They're so happy to see you, and it makes the experience better versus waiting in line for an hour. You can't get any water here.
Well, isn't the reverse true? So the best food in the world and the lousiest service, you're not going back there. No matter how good the food is, not unless someone else.
Well, because the food only goes down and then that's it. But the feeling that you take home with you, wasn't she so nice, or wasn't he so pleasant? And that's just natural. And, because most people don't get that. And that's why people in the hospitality industry learn what 5-star service is,
Acknowledge people, treat them with diplomacy. Well, really, isn't it the golden rule? Do unto others as you'd like to be treated.
Most people, they never learn that rule very well.
That's what I'm saying.
Or they think they're the ones who are owed, and it just and a new person has to pay for something they had nothing or no knowledge of. I know, and we'll close it up. There's people that say, well, because of this, I can't do that anymore, right? I mean, I just got taken advantage in this. And I'm like, well, I wasn't part of it. I wasn't there. And if you made $1 million, would you give it to the next person? So, what do you, last thing, transference is a big thing. And when you're with negative people, that transfers to you. When you're with
vibration,
that's right, and the positive vibration transfers to you. So,
yes, it does.
If you had earphones that were blasting your ears, you turn it down or turn it off. When you got people bringing it down or making you feel off,
step away.
Right, turn it off. Go to a place where you're more comfortable and relaxed, because you got feet. You can move, right? You got a car, you can drive. So why don't you make that happen and acknowledge that in yourself, that, hey, this isn't cool. Where I'm at, I'm not happy. People here are awful, and you don't even have to tell them how awful. You don't got to acknowledge them. You just move on. So anyways, me and Leslie can talk forever, but we got the rest of the week to do that too. And with that said, thank you so much for taking your valuable time, thought, and effort, and contributing not only to our show and what we had to say, but for the other people around you. And network if you can. A lot of great people right in front of your eyes. Acknowledge them. You'll be acknowledged. With that said, have a wonderful day. Be back tomorrow with Kelly. And next week, Leslie will be here with